Hello, I'm Matthew. This is Matthew Answers the Internet, episode 3, making it officially a series, or at the very least, a stool. It's the show where I peruse the internet looking for questions, then instead of answering them in the right place, I make this video and we answer them good and proper in the comments. And question 1 starts out with, I've never been to a convention. Am I missing something integral to being a gamer? I love conventions, and we'll think of conventions in a general sense outside of there being any strange things going on in the world at large. I think they're great. I have such a good time. But the thing I care the least about at a convention is board games. And obviously, that's ridiculous. I obviously care about board games a lot. Look at me now. But the thing I really care about is the people. I wouldn't go to a convention on my own. And I wouldn't go to a convention if I knew I wasn't going to know anyone. Because what I want to do is I want to meet up with friends that I've made from board game groups, from me personally from doing board game media. And I want to see people, and that's what I really care about. Are you missing out on something integral to being a gamer? No, because I kind of think that if you play Uno, and that's the only game you ever play, you're a gamer in my book. But it is something that if you have the urge to do, if you have an urge to go to a board game convention, then you should go. But go to something local. Go to something that's near to you. There may not be a convention right next door, but there will be hopefully something near you. Because the thing you have to take into consideration with conventions is they are expensive. Flights or driving across country, hotels, food at restaurants and takeout and stuff like that, it all adds up. Conventions are a really pricey thing. Just the ticket to get into some conventions can be very expensive. And of course, the temptation of all the board games that are there. Sure, you can go and get yourself a deal, but you still wouldn't have spent that money if you didn't go. If you think you'd enjoy being around a lot in a crowded room of lots of people, going through a big board game shop essentially, looking through, which I really do enjoy, then yeah, I think you should go. I certainly love conventions. They mean a lot to me. But do you need to go to one? No.
This episode is made possible in part by the legendary expansion Annihilation from Upper Deck, which introduces the dark new threat, Annihilus, Lord of the Negative Zone, who has declared war on everyone that crosses his path. Fantastic Four, war declared. Doctor Doom, war declared. Onions on his sandwich when he specifically said no onions? Oh, you better believe there's gonna be war. And all this war declaring requires heroes and villains alike to band together against the total annihilation that looms. So it's time for all forces to unite side by side against the incoming wave of destruction and hoagie complaints. Annihilation is an expansion for the legendary base game, which is required to play, and it's coming soon to local game stores and upperdeckstore.com. So follow the link in this video's description for more.
Question 2 is, so I like the idea of war games, but I don't know where to start. Now, I like the idea of war games, and I got in there, but I know someone who knows the answer to this better than I do, and that's Candice Harris. So here's Candice with a very good answer to this question.
If you're interested in war games and you don't know where to start, I suggest trying an entry-level war game since the rules are relatively easy to learn and they don't take too long to play. That way you can get a feel for war games without investing too much time or energy into something that may or may not be for you. Specifically, I'd recommend checking out Undaunted Normandy. It is not only one of my favorite deck building games, but it's also such a solid intro to wargaming. Along with that, I'd recommend 300 Earth and Water, The Shores of Tripoli, Brave Little Belgium, and if you don't mind games that are more in the 2 to 3 hour time frame, definitely check out 1775 Rebellion and Sekigahara, the Unification of Japan. All of these games are really fun to play, and they have this exciting tension to them, but beyond that, they're historically based, so you might just learn something, and I find that so rewarding. I never realized how much I would appreciate historical board games until I got into wargaming. Then, if you are looking for something slightly more complex and maybe with a little more depth, I recommend checking out Cuba Libre, which is in the Coin series by GMT and Volko Ruhnke. Cuba Libre, features asymmetric factions competing in this multifaceted area control struggle driven by a unique event card and eligibility system. So good, so good. The cool thing with Cuba Libre is, even though it's a little more complex than the other games I recommended, it comes with a playbook in addition to the rule book. And the playbook walks you through a few turns so you can learn how the different actions work and why you might take certain actions. It's super helpful, and I definitely recommend running the playbook in addition to reading the rule book if you decide to delve into Cuba Libre. Back to you, Matthew.
Thank you so much, Candice, for answering that question in a much more eloquent way than my ramblings about Undaunted and Tsukiki Horror would have gone. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for taking the time to tell me and for taking the time to tell the audience here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot. And now for question 3, which is a doozy. I'm interested in buying X, but it's not ranked well on BoardGameGeek. Should I still get it? BoardGameGeek is probably the greatest online resource of board games that exists, in the English language, at least. If you want to find out rules clarifications, you want to download the rules completely of how to play a game, you want to find out about new games, you like Rainer Knizia, you want to see every game he's ever done, I've Googled that on BoardGameGeek many times. Do you Google on BoardGame? Whatever. But the ranking system on there is something to be taken with a pinch of salt. It's an aggregate. It's not exact. If you want to buy a game and you really like the look of it and you think, oh, that game looks really good, that looks right up my street, I like the theme, I like those mechanics, I like that designer, that publisher never lets me down, whatever your reasons are, maybe all of those reasons are there, and then you find out the game's ranked 5 out of 10 on BoardGameGeek as a general ranking of the game, or it's really far down in general of all the games in rank order. So it's like at number 20,000 on BoardGameGeek. Should you really pay attention to that? Of course, we have limited time in our lives, and it's a useful tool to just kind of write things off. But I will tell you right now, if you really think you're going to like the game, and you can get a copy of it, or you can play it, try it, because you might like it. There's so many times I've been surprised by games that are ranked really low, or I've bought a game in my collection, I've bought something, I've looked at it, I've gone, oh, I really like this game, I really like the look of it, I've got it. Then you look at it on BoardGameGeek and you go, it's ranked so poorly. And I've loved the game. Ultimately, the only person that needs to like that game is you and the minimum player count for that game, right? And I think you should do your due diligence, use BoardGameGeek for what it is, but don't let other people, it's not just BoardGameGeek, don't let other people tell you that a game is good or bad if you really, really think you're going to like it. How many bad movies do you like? I'll finish this segment with a slight anecdote. There's a restaurant near me. I've eaten there my entire life. It's a Chinese restaurant, and I, at some point in the last 4 or 5 years, looked up the restaurant online, and I found out it's got like a 2 out of 5. Now, I was very surprised by this, but the reason I like that restaurant so much might be nostalgia, might be because I've got a bad taste, but my tastes have been defined by that restaurant in many ways for Chinese food. So by that logic, if your taste had been defined by a certain style of game and that certain style of game is ranked low in general, then you know better than BoardGameGeek if you're going to like that game or not. In my mind, that anecdote makes a lot of sense, but the fact remains. Don't let other people tell you what games you can and cannot like, but do your due diligence. Look hard and research. If you're going to spend your money on something, make sure you're spending on something that you like. But geez, I look around my collection of games. There's so many games that are ranked hilariously low in my collection. And wrongly so. Wrongly. I say wrongly. Or maybe my tastes don't align with the general population. The next question, for something completely different, is does anyone else like to set the mood with thematic music at game night? I've never thought about setting the mood at game night. The mood I normally try to get going at game night is, hey, everyone, shut up, get your phones away, we're playing a game. That's the mood I need. But setting the mood with music and that type of like lighting or There's loads of companies that make candles. You can get candles that smell like a wharf. A fisherman's wharf, not the wharf that just popped up there. I've never done it. Dressing up. Some people want to do that. You dress up in your thing. I feel like this works, and I see it happen more often with role-playing games. And in role-playing games, I get it. I totally understand. Setting the mood, getting your characters to the environment where they are. If we're in like a castle, and you can hear the castle, the gates opening and closing, and horses in the background, and the chattering, the people in the pubs and stuff like that. Yeah, I get it. But music on a board game night, never done it. I find music very distracting, if I'm honest. Maybe I'm just a grumpy curmudgeon. I'm the kind of person that if there's a TV on in the room, I cannot physically hold a conversation with you, even if that TV is on, like, the volume's down. I'm incapable. So I find music distracting, but maybe like background music, you know, you're playing, I don't know, you're playing a war game and you've kind of got some rousing trumpets in the background, which isn't really background music. But we do this at movies, right? You know, there's movie experiences where you go to a movie and it blasts air at you and there's like smoke in the room and all that kind of stuff. That exists, those 4D cinemas. I've never been to one. Again, curmudgeon. I can totally understand how music would improve the experience of a thematic game, or make a game that's not that thematic perhaps, more so by kind of setting the environment. It's something I'd be very interested to do. I see people drink drinks that are in line with the theme of the game, beer or wine or soft drinks, or like a tea from the country where you're playing the game, and that interests me a lot more. I quite like the idea of that, or food that's in line with the theme. I really like that idea. But if you're the kind of person that can put in the effort to enhance a board gaming experience for you and the other people there, then I say more power to you. I don't think I have the patience to do it, but I do see how it could improve an experience for a really memorable board game night. But blasting top 40 hits while I'm trying to think about my next tile placement, absolutely not. And the last one, which I thought was a fun one when I saw it, is what is the pride of your board game collection? Now by this, I think what they really want to get at, and what I want to get at, is what is the game that you're most happy you own? Not necessarily the most expensive game, not necessarily the most rare game, but what is the pride possession of your board game collection? I had to think really long and hard about this, because there's lots of games that I've got which are fairly rare because I've spent a lot of time hunting down old Reiner Knizia games. But the game that I would say is the pride of my collection is Carcassonne, the City in the wooden box. It doesn't have the sleeve. It's okay. Carcassonne is one of my favourite games. The City is my favourite version of the game. And this wooden box edition, which is now open, is a great edition. And I was really happy to find it. And I was hunting it down for a very long time. It wasn't that expensive. I think I got a copy of it for like 40 quid, maybe 45 quid. I think I found it on the BoardGameGeek marketplace, actually. And I was really happy to find it. I would say this is the pride of my own collection. It probably is one of the rarer games that I own. But what is the pride of your collection? Answer me that in the comments below, as well as any other questions that I've asked during today's episode. I'd love to know what your opinions are on all the topics that I've covered. And tell us what is the pride of your board game collection. And we can all be envious and brag away in the comments below. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Candice, so much for taking part and answering a question for me. You can find more stuff from Candice on BoardGameGeek, actually. I just appreciate it so much that you're taking the time to do that. And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.